Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest. Hey y'all, we all know it. The hype on AI is everywhere in sales right now, but how do you move beyond that and actually use it to produce better results? Today, that's what we're talking about with Sean O'Shaughnessy. Sean's a fractional CRO, he's a sales leader, he's a podcast host, and he's a recognized expert using AI for sales. He's got nearly 40 years of experience leading sales teams across multiple industries, and he's got the background and experience. He's making a difference across the board. So today we're exploring how sales organizations can actually leverage AI to improve coaching, uncover buying committees, automate research, and give salespeople more time to do what they do best. So we're talking about more conversations in context more often. So if you're looking for quick wins and how you use AI to drive revenue growth, this is an episode for you. Let's get started with Sean O'Shaughnessy. Sean, welcome to the program, man. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me back.
It's great to have you back. We've been talking about this for a little while, and I'm excited. There's a little bit of a preview, but I'm excited. I get to come down and speak in your area of the woods pretty soon.
Yeah.
You do some really cool stuff around sales and sales networking down in the Cincinnati area. So
So I host a group called Beers and Biz. We probably should call it Beers and Biz and Bourbon too, because the place where we has good drinks for bourbon. But yeah, we have 100 to 120 people show up once a month. We do networking, we do some training meeting. We talk about some high level concepts that people can get better on in their life and their business. We always feature a charity, which is kind of fun because now it's time to give back. Most salespeople, most people that are business people are on the top 50 percentile of the economic world, global world, probably better than 50 percentile in the US. So it's time to give back, and we like to give opportunities for them to learn about how to give back to their fellow person.
That's great. And that's something that you and some of your partners just created and made happen. And I love the opportunity to come down there. Just for the audience's perspective, what have you been up to? What have you been up to lately?
So since I was on your podcast lately, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I started my new podcast, AI Tools for Sales Pros, which is going to be a little bit about what we're going to talk about. I'll probably pitch that several times during our conversation. And I've just expanded my functionality to just give some background on who I am. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. After 35 years of enterprise sales management, where I was everywhere from a salesperson to, chief revenue officer for a company, I decided that there's a bunch of small businesses out there that can't afford to have my advice as if I'm a full-time employee, but they can afford my advice if we sit down and we work out something, and I sit down and I help them with their salespeople, with their sales management, with their sales processes, whatever. And I help them through their capability of growing their company and making their company more valuable. But in the last, last year and a half, that business has grown even more. And there's more companies across the United States that look for help and just can't figure out how to get there. So it's been good.
Well, and in that fractional world, and we're going to dive today, like one of the core things that people have questions about is AI. And I like it when we start to get practical around AI instead of let's get her out of the theoretical and the practical about what are some of the tools that we can be adopting in the now that can help, SMBs, and by SMBs, anything up to like 100 and 150 million compete with the enterprise. So I know that's really where you've been focusing a lot of your work lately. So let's dive into just some categories of those tools and try and give some helpful advice, because I've been working a lot on the same thing. And so what is kind of one of the major categories that you're looking at in terms of where AI starts to make an impact for sales teams today?
Yeah. So, and I agree about the whole thought process of $100 million company that needs to get better, right? So the reality is the billion dollar, the $2 billion, the $3 billion companies that are out there, they are already moving forward. They have lots of initiatives going on. So if you're a 50 or $100 million company, you need to hurry up and get on board because AI is going to give you the ability to become even with those billion-dollar companies, those $2 billion companies that you compete with, or AI is going to give them the ability to be farther ahead than you are. So we gotta do it. So a couple of the things that I think make a lot of sense in AI, keeping keeping in touch with our customers and our prospects, easy tools to pull that off. For sales leaders, sales managers, or owners of the company, is my team actually doing the right thing in the sales call and the follow up and all the rest? Are they really doing all the things that they need to do to make that happen? So conversational intelligence I think, is a big win for a lot of companies because they can actually ride shotgun on a lot of salespeople without actually leaving your desk and have AI very quickly tell you, hey, Joe in your prospecting group is talking too much and not asking enough open-ended questions. All of his questions are closed-ended questions, blah, 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 right? So all of that analysis, easy to do with AI, and it allows you to really go ahead and do some sit down with Joe and say, listen to this again. How can we work that through? How can we get better at doing our job? And things that you would never be able to do if you didn't have AI listening to every single conversation or analyzing every single conversation after the fact. So conversational intelligence, big win on making your salespeople better.
And one of the things that we talked about in the lead up to this was being able to look at that conversational intelligence in the context of the actual sales project that they're working in or the process that you recommend, not just in general sales conversational intelligence, but actually directly taking in the information within that project, within that prospect, and understanding what's going on. How have you been helping organizations really hone that down? Because it's something that's highly important, right? Because I can get a AI tool to tell me, oh, you're talking too much. It's probably telling me that right now. But how to be able to say, okay, hey, your organization, you use Medic, you use MedPick, or you leverage baseline selling. Those type of features and factors. How are you helping organizations really look at the full context of what's going on in those conversations and then come out with some great recommendations based on that?
Sure. So not everybody uses your tool. Let's be honest, right? Your CRM tool. They probably should, and they probably don't, right? So there are a wide variety of ways that we can get information about the opportunity. That's the first step out of the CRM and into the AI system. And it really can be any of the AI systems that you want to use, right? So this capability is so low level that any of the current AI systems on the market can do this process. But it's a piece of cake to pull the information about the customer that's in the CRM system, however detailed that happens to be. By the way, we can also say, by the way, it's not detailed enough, but the AI can actually answer that question as well. But we can get all that information. But because we have all that information, we can go to a lot of other places. We can go to their website. We can go to, let's say you're selling to Procter & Gamble, since Procter & Gamble is based here in Cincinnati, I'll just pick on them, right? You're selling to Procter & Gamble, and Procter & Gamble's this big conglomerate. They have lots of different products, so you're probably selling to a division of P&G. So I can go and I can have AI figure out what are we selling to, right? We're selling to the Tide Group. We're going to understand more about all the products that Tide has. So let's make sure that's all sucked in, and so the conversation is relevant, and they can say, well, why didn't you talk about your competitors or whatever in the conversation? So you can have AI do that. You can go to everybody that was on the call. You can figure out what their LinkedIn profile is. And you can go take a look at LinkedIn and you can pull in personal information about them. So why didn't you reference the fact that he went to the same college that you did or whatever, right? So we can pull in all of that personal metadata about that person. And we can also, of course, suck in that process that we are going to use. And as you know, I prefer MedPick, but whatever. So we can suck in where we are on the stages, where this is what you should have got done. And now we can analyze that conversation with all of that context and make suggestions after the fact, probably make suggestions after the fact on what you could have done better. And yes, the first low hanging fruit is, did you talk enough or did you talk too much? Did you ask open ended questions? That's easy to do, right? Let's be honest, that's really easy to do. Some of the tools do that today. To make AI really make it go better, you need all that contextual information that you pull out of the CRM, that you pull out of LinkedIn, that you pull out of, you scrape their website, you scrape the company's website you're selling for, or at least you have all that information that you can flow into it. And now we have all of this information, and now the AI can actually do an even better job of making suggestions about this is perhaps what you missed. Why didn't you do that? You don't want to have the AI actually say, hey, Joe, you screwed up on this call because you didn't talk about this. Because there may have been a reason why Joe didn't do that. Joe's the human in the loop, right? Joe's making a real-time dedicated decision right now on the fly. Don't beat him up, but ask, why didn't you talk about the fact that we could do this or we could do that? Maybe it's a training issue. Maybe it was Joe made that decision not to talk about it for a reason. And that's fine. But all of that information can be given to Joe, and Joe can get smarter without having a manager do anything. But then when we send it to the manager, we can say, hey, manager, hey, owner of the company, whatever the case may be, you need to make sure that Joe is up to speed on this capability with our product, that he's up to speed. He doesn't quite understand MedPick because we're out of order on what he's asking about, and we don't have some basic questions figured out, and he's already asking closing questions or whatever. So we can coach the leader of the company on the three things that Joe needs help on based on the call that just happened. And then the next call and the next call and the next call. Now we have a really good idea of how to coach it. And now we can actually pull out data and we can do role playing using AI again to actually say, look, everybody seems to be making the same mistake. And now I can train my salespeople. Here's how we get around this problem. Here's how we talk about this problem that happens or this pushback, this objection that the customer have. And we can use AI to help us structure that sales meeting, structure that training process. AI can, find stuff for the person to read, to learn more about that technology, whatever the case may be. So all of these things I list them all and they're kind of long and seems like I go all anywhere, but they're relatively easy to do. I mean, in a couple weeks, you can have all of this implemented and have it working with just a couple weeks. I mean, inside of a month, maybe 6 weeks on the outside, all of this can be done and your salespeople can just be that much more productive and good at their job.
Yeah, no, I love how you're thinking about it because, obviously listeners on this podcast know that we run a technology company. We have a growth platform, and that's the type of stuff that's built in or integrated into what we're doing. And I find that context and that decision on the context and how you're going to use it is the single most important. So we've been talking a whole lot about things like, specific opportunities and then being able to coach. How are you, this is just a curious question, how are you actually doing the coaching or found that the coaching has been most effective when you integrate the AI like you're talking? Like, is it that it's the AI is doing the coaching itself, or is it that it's bringing you as the coach and manager into the equation to start to have the conversations with the reps?
I think it takes both, right? So the reality is we cannot forget that we are humans and we don't like to take instructions from a computer, right? So let's just understand that for reality. We want human in the loop. We want to have a conversation like, no, AI, you didn't understand why I didn't do something. And trying to have that conversation with AI is just a waste of time, right? So you don't want to do that, right? But you do want to have the conversation with your manager, and your manager has to learn how to take those suggestions from AI so that they aren't upsetting, right? They don't make you feel like you're being demeaned, right? So that's just good management philosophy. So I think our managers have to get a little bit better and develop some skills in that area. But I do actually suggest that right after the meeting, within minutes after the meeting, there's a Slack message, an email message, a Telegram message, whatever, WhatsApp, whatever messaging tool that you use in your organization gets sent from the AI system, and you should name it, you should nickname it. You can call it idiot if you want, or you can call it, something really cool, right? So you call it Zeus if you want to, right? So Zeus can then reach out to you and say, hey, I was listening to your call. These are the two or three things that I think maybe we missed. Would love to have a conversation with you. And you can have a bit of a conversation, but remember, you're talking to an AI bot. So, and part of the setup has to be the AI bot has to be trained and coached on don't please. So AI right now, when it comes out of the box from ChatGPT or Gemini or whoever, whatever tool you prefer, it is designed to please you. And in
Mm.
this setting, you have to have it not please you. You actually have to tell it, I want you to push back. I want you to give hard suggestions and show that you care, but you're still going to be confrontational and kind of push them to the next level. So that's very important to do within the AI system. And then you'd use the human manager to really try to get more context to help the salesperson out. And I find that real-time feedback plus, end of the week kind of feedback makes sense from coming from the human manager.
Yeah, I find it nauseating sometimes when I'm chatting with Chat GPT when I ask it a question that I know is, it's not a well-formed question or stupid, and then it's like, oh, that's such a wonderful question. You're amazing. Here's your dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Leave that out of it. Let's just be honest and open. So let's talk about some other functions then. So coaching is obviously a massive one. Massive, massive, massive. Another huge one that I see is data. Right. And so we were talking about before this, and not just, data like the Zoom info, but how do we provide data and context relative to the research and the people that we need to be talking about. And we're talking about that same like Procter and Gamble, and you're talking about prior to the show, we started recording, like how do we use this to level sell and just find really the challenges and issues that are actually happening across the organization that we may be blind to. How have you helped organizations do that?
Sure. So I'm going to go back to the one of the biggest challenges that every salesperson that's listening to this, and if you're a sales leader, you've heard it before. Steve isn't calling me back, right? So you're trying to close the deal. It's the end of the month, end of the quarter, and you're reaching out to your prospect, and your prospect is busy. And so they are not responding to you at your speed, right? So that is typically a problem with being what I call single sourced on the opportunity, or you have one way of getting a hold of that opportunity. And that's through Steve, right? And Steve isn't being mean. Steve isn't evil. Steve isn't really in love with your competitor, but Steve is busy. He has other things that are on his plate that he's trying to get done. Wouldn't it be great if you knew that Steve reported to Sally and you could call Sally, or just somebody, Sally was on the team or Henry was on the team, and you could reach out to Henry and go, Steve's not calling me back. Why is that? I get so frustrated when you're talking about a deal that is 2, 3, 4, 5% of your annual quota. So I measure all size of deals by how big is it based on your annual quota. So if it's less than 1% of your quota, man, that's transactional, right? You got to do 100 of them to make your quota. So it's got to be relatively transactional. You're not putting a lot of effort into it. But if it's a 5% deal, you only need to do 20 of those a year to get your quota done, right? So if it's a 5% deal, you can't be single threaded. You need to be multi-threaded in that account or in that opportunity. So one of the things that I've seen customers do, and I think it's a great best practice, is so Joe is the salesperson, and Joe creates a new opportunity. He's got Steve there, and he writes Steve down as the contact person, brand new opportunity. It's at Tide within Procter and Gamble. Wouldn't it be great if the system, the AI system, and the CRM working together said, brand new opportunity. We only know one person at Procter and Gamble, and that's Steve. Wouldn't it be great to figure out what other people, based on the product that you sell and how long your sales cycle is and how many people you usually have to have in a sales cycle, let's just go find the rest of the people right away. We have fantastic tools. There's all kinds of databases out there of people within an organization you can hook up. Let's let AI go out there, grab the other 20 people that are in that department, and then present that list to the salesperson and say, do any of these people make sense? And once again, let the human decide. No, that's the wrong department. AI, you got that one wrong. But this person, yeah, I need to know that person, right? Let's stick all those people in the CRM system. That's job one, right? So now we got them in the CRM system. We can we can learn more about them, do some LinkedIn grabbing of information, suck that into the system as well. We can make sure that we have all the context about Tide, everything they doing in their group, where are the plant locations, blah, blah, blah. We can find more stuff about Procter & Gamble as well, just at a high level. We can suck all that stuff in there. Why in the world would a salesperson want to do that if they could have an assistant do it for them? I tell this story a lot. My father sold heavy construction equipment back in the 60s and 70s. Heavy construction equipment, bulldozers and whatnot, right? It was the time of the building of the interstate system, so it was a good time to sell heavy construction equipment. And he was busy and he provided well for our family. You know, he made 5 sales calls every day of the week, 25 sales calls a week. Now, these weren't phone calls. These weren't
Mhm.
Zoom calls. Zoom didn't exist back then. These were belly to belly, shaking hands across the table, a lot of times shaking hands across having a cup of coffee while you're standing up against that bulldozer too. But he made 25 sales calls every week. When he got done with his day, or maybe before he started his day, he would swing by his office and he would drop off all of his notes, all of his thought process. He would talk to his assistant and he'd say, I need this, and this done. I need this letter sent. I need you to look up this. I need you to check on this order. Where's it at? When are we going to get delivery? We need to expedite this, all that stuff. He didn't do any of that. He had his assistant do that. Now, in today's age, we got rid of the assistant. We gave you a laptop. Biggest killer of
Mhm.
productivity we ever did to a salesperson is give them a laptop because now they spend all the time looking at their laptop instead of talking to customers. So what we really need to do is we need to give them an assistant. We can't afford that now, probably $75,000 assistant by the time you, all the costs of having a dedicated assistant to a salesperson, all the costs of healthcare and all the rest. Can't afford that anymore. But you can't afford a $5,000 AI assistant. So let the AI assistant go out there, grab all that information, suck all that information into the CRM system, grab all the information from about Procter & Gamble and Tide, grab all the information about those 20 people, where'd they go to school, where else did they work, who are they connected to, how are they connected to you. Let AI figure all that stuff out. It can do it. It costs you almost nothing to do. And the salesperson now can make another sales call because they aren't doing research. And we need to get away from salespeople doing research and have salespeople talking to customers.
Well, I was gonna go one place. I'm gonna stick with. We need to put a pin in your comment there about giving the laptop to salespeople. So we're coming back to that because I love it. I love the thought. But the interesting that I find, well, it kind of correlates with that is when we get this data, the actions that we actually take with it, it doesn't solve the problem of, okay, I now have these 20 people and I'm afraid to go over Steve's head or around Steve or to talk to somebody else relative relative to this deal. Like, are you focusing? So AI gets that data, but you as a coach or a manager, you still have to do that push. And how are you helping organizations do that? Like, because I that becomes still the data is the data now. I think the playing field is pretty level in terms of that. You can suck all this in, but it's like, okay, now how do you get that push to get that individual to actually make those calls, have that courage, and make it happen?
Yeah, so that's the great thing about, first of all, we've taken away one of their biggest complaints is I'm too busy doing research to actually make sales calls. You know, right now, salespeople interface to a customer about 25% of their day versus 75%, 60%, whatever. You listen to a different study, you're going to get a slightly different number, but it's going to range somewhere between 50 to 60, 75% of your time is not making sales calls. So, like, If we could get 25% up to 50%, that's twice as many sales calls. Well, this is a worthwhile effort, right? So let's get rid of all the other things that are eating them up, which is all the research stuff. Yes, everything that goes into the CRM system, it needs to have a human's name on it, right? We need to say, yes, that's the right information, that's the right process, that's the right company, that's all of this is accurate, right? We need to have a person in the middle. That's easy to feed as draft copy before you hit send, read the document, read the update, approvals processes, piece of cake. It's a lot easier though to approve than it is to write. So I can change a writing process of I'm going to type a whole thing about how Tide integrates to Procter and Gamble, how big they are, and where their marketing agencies are, blah blah blah. That would take hours to write. It would take AI seconds to write. And it would take a human being maybe 5 minutes to read and say, yep, AI got that right. So let's get rid of all of that work. Then we can actually have AI say, okay, you have not talked to Steve's boss, Sally. Here are 3 things that you probably should do as a reach out to her. First of all, you might want to just ask Steve for permission. Can I meet Sally? Right? That's easy. But also, you might want to write a cold email to Sally, and you might want to talk about the fact that she also worked at General Electric and she also managed this project, and you guys were part of that project, and we kind of know each other, but we don't really know each other. Or maybe my boss knows her and they can make a recommendation there, right? So you can use AI to build that out as well, which makes it really easy to send an email, drop a note, connect on LinkedIn. All of that stuff can be done with AI to just make your life faster and easier. And AI can actually come up with the ideas of, you haven't done this and you haven't done that. Do you need help? Can I help? Can I do this for you? And let it be your assistant. The same way, and I don't remember her name off the top of my head anymore, my dad had his assistant. And when he would show back up to the office after she's done things, she goes, and I also did this for you. We need to go back into that mode of how can we help salespeople be more productive? The fact that they're only making sales calls 25%, 30%, 40% of the day, that's bad.
Well, so, and this ties to your, I love the statement because it comes off as controversial, but we gave everybody a laptop, right? I mean, so as I've done, and I sent you the report, but I've done a couple of studies on this where, as technology has increased massively, and tech stacks have increased massively over the past 25 years, the quota attainment has actually been inverse of that. It's gone down. And then time, you mentioned the other thing, time making sales calls has actually gone down. How do we eliminate that or crush that trend? And will we becomes the other question, because I think it's not a 100% guarantee that we will. But how do we reverse that trend instead of saying this is just another time suck for reps? This is something that actually improves your productivity, and I can now hold you accountable to more.
And there are stories after stories after stories of early adopters to this technology that have done exactly that. And I don't have them on my fingertips, and I don't want to quote a metric that's incorrect or a story that's incorrect, but there are multiple stories of early adopters. And we are early, right? So let's face it. 3 years ago, did you even know what ChatGPT was? So the reality is this is all new ground. And my encouragement to sales organizations is get on board because some have. And some of that productivity has been pretty amazing. And it's been amazing by eliminating the drudgery of the job. Salespeople actually, if you've hired right, and let's be honest, we may not have done that, but if you've hired correctly, they want to sell more. Most of you have Most people put out a quota, right? If you make this much money, or if you sell this much product, you make this much money, right? You get graded this way, you get rewarded, you get a trip at the end of the year, whatever the case may be. So salespeople want to do well. So if you give them time and give them support, they probably will do more. And the one thing that nobody can really argue about is if you can talk to more people, you'll probably sell more, especially if you can talk to more people at the same account. right? So that means you get better at that account, you know more about that account, you have more ideas of what their problems are. And as sales leaders, we've seen this over and over again. I didn't know about my account, right? I didn't know that they had this other technology that I'm trying to sell against. I didn't know that they had a failed project, which is causing the CFO to kind of be hesitant about something new that they want to try. If I'm a marketing agency trying to sell a marketing agency services to Tide, I didn't know they had other marketing agencies. Obviously you did, but let's be honest, we need to get rid of those issues and make them easier. The more you know, the more people you know, the more people you talk to, you're probably going to close more business. You're definitely going to close more of the 5%, 10% of quota deals and less of the 1%. We can't sell more 1% unless really that's all your business is the 1%. You got to do 500 transactions a year to make your number. That's a tough job. And that is actually not a job where automation becomes even more important because now can I get 500 deals to turn into 600 deals? But if you're talking about bigger deals, that is about how many conversations can I have with my customer? And I just want to talk to them and
Mhm.
I want to learn more. And we can have AI help us do that. And the coaching will be there, as we were talking earlier in this episode. The coaching of, hey, you forgot to ask Sally about this. Maybe you should drop her a note. I did you a favor and I wrote you a draft copy of that note. Hey, Sally, I forgot to talk to you about this. Can we set up another time to have this conversation? That note's in your drafts folder right now. Just approve it and hit send.
I think we should title this episode Better Conversations, More Conversations in Context using
Yeah.
AI. I mean, that's really the heart of the matter. Like if we or you as a company out there listening adopt AI and it becomes another one of those barriers, like it's actually reducing your sales conversations in market, run screaming or find somebody else to implement AI for you, because that's what it has to do. It has to empower us to have better and more frequent conversations in market, and it has to be in the right context. So I love how you're thinking, Sean. How do people find you if they want to have any chat?
So my email is relatively easy to do, so I'll do that first. It's
Okay.
Sean, Sean, at new sales, that's one word, new sales dot expert. No dot com, no nothing. New sales dot expert. Sean at new sales dot expert. You can also, now a really long name, and you're going to see it in the show notes or whatever. Sean O'Shaughnessy is a long name, but I'm at Sean O'Shaughnessy or S O'Shaughnessy at LinkedIn. Just I'm out there all the time. I put a ton of stuff out there. Most of it lately is about AI, so you'll be able to see that. But you can find me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to do that if you can figure out how to spell O'Shaughnessy.
All right. And we'll put that in the notes. We'll make sure that people have access to you. And any final thoughts before we close the episode for today?
Do something on AI today. My first thing that I tell everybody to start with is use Grammarly. Now I'm not paid by Grammarly. I don't make any commission on Grammarly. I'm just going to tell you use Grammarly. It's AI based and it'll allow you to write better. Our job as salespeople is to communicate. And the better you can write, the more clear, that it's more understandable your writing is, the better off you are. So if you want to get a checkbox and say, I implemented a agentic based tool, an AI based tool in my company for my salespeople to get better, go use Grammarly. Just tell all your salespeople to use Grammarly. You do not get points for having bad vocabulary and bad grammar. You just don't. You only get points for communicating well.
Mm.
So that's my opening comment or my closing comment. I tell this to everybody. First thing you should do, go use Grammarly. It's really, really cheap, works really well. If you do it at an enterprise level, it works even better. You can actually control the messaging and control how things are talked about. It's even better if you're at an enterprise level, if you have 5 or 10 or 20 people that are on it at the same time.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being back on. I can't wait to see you down. I think in August. I'm gonna be that's from heading down to the Beers and Biz and presenting down there. It's can't believe that's only a couple months away. That's
Yeah.
insane.
August. So I'm going to actually do a plug for you. Come
Okay.
see Paul Fuller talk about how to grow your business and how to get more sales at Beers and Biz. Starts at 3:30 on August 27th. It's going to be a great episode, great time. You get to shake Paul's hand. If you've never met Paul, you get to do that. And then, you know what? You can have a beer with him after the fact too. So that'd be awesome.
Well, I wasn't expecting the plug, but thank you for it. Thank you for it. And everybody out there, if you are in that neighborhood, we'll make sure you get invited. And as always, make sure you're doing all the things, the liking, the subscribing, the clicking, the sharing, everything that can help this get out there to more people and elevate the sales profession. And just keep shining bright. And for that, we'll close out this episode of The Art and Science of Complex Sales. Have an absolutely